Bro, this shit is unbearable. If you can hear me, you should be able to hear me right now, bro. I swear, I'm fucking gonna never. I'm so close to never streaming on that app ever again. It's not even worth my fucking money. I can't even believe it. So, for the people that are missing the context, obviously behind the scenes, I've been going live on a few different on this platform for a long time. It's called Streamlabs. It's one of the most popular streaming application that does exist that helps people, go ahead and actually build something for themselves, right? And bro, I tell you right now, every fucking time in like the last like probably like almost 6 months now that I tried to go live and try to troubleshoot all the bullshit, I've had plenty of issues. It made me reconstruct my entire system of the way I did it, everything. I'm just always having a problem with that. I waited for a new update. I waited like 5 months for a new update. Still same fucking problem. And it's like every time I do it, it's either I get another problem or shit just doesn't work. It's always either another problem or the same recurring issue. So hopefully everything sounds good, looks good, and let me know in the comments as well. I love using this application, but there's limitations, unfortunately. Which is why I want to use the other one, because the other one doesn't have any limitations besides the fact that it just doesn't do what the fuck it's supposed to, which is cooked. So yeah. So I don't know, man. This shit's annoying. Give me 1 second. What the fuck? Let me know if you can hear everything. I'm gonna play some music. I don't even want to do. I've already played this song like fucking 3 times already. I'm gonna just do another one. Fuck it.
Ring, ring, who the fuck is that? It's a 910 number, so you know what niggas at.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
Who the fuck is you? 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 Out the way, it's a real nigga coming through. Out the way, it's a real nigga coming through. What it is, ho? 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 What it is?
Trying to get my account on here too. Jesus Christ.
Computer style of the unibrow, unibomber.
Bro, I just want to see the fucking chat, bro.
Moving calmer than the Buddha ducking funeral parlors. First the hootin' hollering, and then the shooting startup. Cue the saga, the root of
Everything's
order.
good. Yeah, I know everything's good. It's not the fucking. So
Let
annoying.
off the trooper hollows from German Rugers, they use to do the honors. Congruent with shit that I do to rhymers.
Don't do the
Deuteronomy. Ain't shit niggas can do but honor me. What I'm
It just
quoting
pisses
is
me
God's
off, bro. I swear. Streamlabs is always gonna have an issue. Which doesn't make any sense, bro.
Drug trafficking, slugs blasting, we move accordingly and run faster than blood travels through human arteries. We know exactly what it means when niggas show 9s, 22s, 4-5s. We studying numerology, nigga.
What does this actually mean? To get started, click the button, select stream. Okay, it's kind of gay. Whatever. I fucking hope it's excellent. My God. Yeah, it's useless. Can I put this in my...
Every bar is a part of the murder wrath. Called Peter, them people chopping a bird in half. Break it further down.
Give me a second, fellas.
Earn the math. Exchange pounds for dollars and never converted cash. Welcome to the South where they serve in the dirt and grass. The streets ain't safe. I prefer the deserted path. Was walking with
So
my Walkman
fucking
one day
annoying.
when I heard a blast.
Dude, I don't like the
Shattered the earth in the
the
third
thing
degree.
about it, and I know you guys really don't give a shit, but I'm
My
gonna say it
legs
anyways.
got a turning fast. Straight past the victim, he hobbling.
I heard it bad. So,
Tried to take half a brick, they say payback's a bitch, and I guess
see,
he
Kurt.
inverted tab.
Okay,
They was mastering scales like they learning jazz.
bro, it's just like it's not this little website I'm using, which is like one of the most notorious ones for this fucking, for streaming and shit like that. It's just not user friendly. It's just not user friendly. It's not physically appealing or aesthetically appealing.
Low. Who the fuck is you? Who the fuck is you? Who the fuck? Yeah, you know know who put the city on. Came back through Rogo, they Peter show I'm really on. Get rich or die trying, I had 50 on. Bitches ringing out my phone like,
Oh, I'm sorry, I love the song.
I stay out the way since I done seen a million. 5%.
Okay, so basically it's like this. It goes a little like this. This is just so not user friendly, and the other one is not working for shit. So it's like you get the not user friendly one that works fine every single time, that has limitations, or you try to figure out the issues that are with the one that's more ideal, but you have to pay more money for the features, and there's a chance of it not working. So either you're fucked, or you can be really fucked. Like, I'm going live on this, and my audio is just fine. I go live on the other one, and all of a sudden, the shit doesn't work. So I'm like, bro, my God, bro, shit pissed me off. And then, yeah, it just there's inconveniences. I wish there's just a platform that's actually, halfway decent, and there's not. At least not anymore. Not through my own experience. And I've been on these shits for like years, so it doesn't make any sense, whatever.
I got this hoodie on. I had to hubble up, stop moving with that jury on. You hear that baritone, this shit get deep as Gibby on. I'm a sidewalk nigga, I'ma stay there. I leave the streets for the ones that wanna play there. I done leveled up so shawty wanna date, yeah. Left my kids in her mouth like a daycare. I'm the Carolina, now I'm no Shakespeare. All that cap, you let them niggas rap is over with. The real is back, you feel the way you gotta cope with it. The veil put a nigga 6 feet like that was COVID hit. Okay, these niggas ain't talking about shit. No diamonds on my neck, no rollie on my wrist. 2-6, I'd alert a little bit. I learned the hardest nigga, he can always get hit. Out the jungle, I done fucked around and got rich. $0 in my pocket, bitch, I'm not a lick. I'd rather that than gotta walk around with sticks. Cause I learned the hardest nigga, he can always get hit. Who the fuck is you? 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 Out the way, it's a real
all right,
nigga
fellas.
coming through. Out the way, it's a fair nigga coming through. Who the fuck is you? Who the fuck is you? Who the fuck is you? Who the fuck is you?
I'm getting a little bit. This is my shit I've been on too. Hold up. Let's go my shit recently. Shout out to Donnie. Seeing sources, audio mixer. I can take these off. Interesting. Interesting.
Your face on fleek, your body on fleek. I'm loving that ass, I'm rubbing your feet. I bought a new truck, a Rubicon G. I paid all cash, the shit's not cheap. I'm a silly hoe, let's not be. Well, I jump from the back, I guess we'll see. But drinking all day, need 2 IVs. Got a bad love for you like black eyed peas. Shake some bass, some for a real nigga. Who here up a couple me and I ain't worried about these bitch. I said shake some bass, some for a real nigga. Who here up a couple me and I ain't worried about these bitch.
Okay, that's weird. Custom browser docs. Lock docs, full height docs, preset docs, scene sources, audio mixer. Ah, I'm just fucking around with this shit right now. Stats. All right, so fellas, I want to know what you guys have on your mind today. If you're watching this live or rewatching this, what's on your mind? Leave it in the comments. Leave it in the live chat, preferably in the live chat. I want to get some conversations today. I want to spread some wisdom as usual. talk a little bit about the things that I've been researching recently or things that I've been finding of interest recently. What the fuck? Yo, what's going on with this, bro? All right. So, last podcast episode that I had recently did, if you haven't watched it, feel free to go ahead and watch it. I do want to talk about that a little bit. I talked about this concept of the undeniable truth. This was a concept that I believe was very, very interesting. Something that I've kind of been hinting at on my channel for a few episodes. I'm gonna add it to the. I gotta do that real quick. Hold up. I'm gonna add it to a playlist that I have on YouTube. It is the what is it? What is it called? What did I name it? The Great Awakening. That's what I named it. If you want to learn more about the world to an extent, and I don't really speak about it in too many specifics, but if you want to know about it, at least in the very, very vague sense, that will at least, hopefully be able to pique your interest, I would highly recommend that for sure. But yeah, it was essentially a podcast that I did recently that was talking about the state of truth that exists today. And in a sense, it's about how, or rather, what we are kind of encountering when it comes to the truth, in terms of truth seeking, in terms of kind of how there's certain things that are being, how things are kind of being approached by the masses, in terms of like what to believe, what not to believe, and all that. So I feel it is very, very interesting because we're not necessarily getting the true dose of reality, the true dose of the truth that does exist. And we're getting this kind of like dripped version, this slow dripped version of what the truth is. And some would call it predictive programming, essentially the concept where they'll tell you what's going to happen before it happens. So it's kind of like we're getting like a slow drip of the truth, right? They'll show you in movies. They'll say, hey, isn't this a crazy idea? And then, you know what, maybe initially you're like, you know what, this actually is a fucking crazy idea. You know what, I never really thought of it that way. This is a pretty wild idea. And then they make another movie, a few shows about it, make another movie a couple years later. Kind of like, get you to being like, you know what, when that movie came out, that was really crazy. But, now it's just kind of like regular. Like a lot of people do that, it's whatever, right? Then they'll tell you 10, 15 years later, after the movie's already out, they'll say, hey, you know what, there's actually, there might be something here. They might have been hinting at something that, potentially can be real. And, you'll have people that say, you know what, no way, that's just a movie, it's just a show, it's just a whatever. You have people that are convinced that this is the reality that does exist. Those people are often called crazy, delusional, whatever, right? They're put in this frame of a conspiracy theorist, and that now really degrades their entire credibility. And 5 years, 10 years, 20 years go by, and all of a sudden, what was once a crazy movie or crazy concept is more of a normalized idea. And by it being a normalized idea, you now run into this weird reality that does exist, where it's no longer this very, very weird concept. It's watered down, and it's actually real. And by the time they tell you, hey, this shit's actually real, everybody's already like, yeah, I kind of seen it. I could kind of see it. But if they had told you, hey, without the movies, without the predictive programming that does exist, hey, this is real, that would create an uproar potentially, especially in the previous years that have existed. But now the way that they do it is they just implement it, slowly, very, very slowly and surely, telling you exactly what's going on. But they don't do it in a sense that's going to be fairly conducive to, the people. Because by then, the people are already so conditioned to believe that this is already a thing, that by it not existing, or by it existing, it really doesn't mean anything. It has no value. It has no it's not going to move people because, people are already so conditioned to these concepts. And that is a way that you kind of break down the truth. If you're telling a person something about the truth of the world, but yet you're not doing it in the fullest sense, the immediate sense, you're kind of doing it where you're like, this is potentially real. You're doing in this somewhat gradual sense. It's intentional, and I think most people need to understand that it's very very intentional, and that is what I hope that series will do for the average person if they're let's just say unawake, right? I have it as the Great Awakening, right? Essentially, trying to brief people on what I believe to be closer to the truth. These truths that do exist that most are still blind to see. Some of these things that people don't want to see. They want to be in denial of the truth. They want to think that things are all nothing but rainbows and sunshines when this world is not all rainbows and sunshines, right? And it's very very interesting, man. It's like I talked about some concepts. I'm not going to go down the whole thing, but essentially I talked about concepts. Essentially, the very very main concept of the distortion of the truth, what that looks like. I talked about its intentional design and how it plays in today's society. I talked about people who are speaking the truth or people who are a little bit ahead of their time. They're not right. They're right, but just not right now. I talked about um, essentially kind of the ways in which these people talk, right? As far as like the certain words that they use, certain language, certain body language, certain things that they kind of hint at or insinuate without necessarily saying up front, but still getting their message across. Um, just to have you, a little bit more observant, um, and a little bit more, intentional when it comes to your observations. If you are recognizing that somebody is trying to speak the truth, um, and I think I'm gonna recommend this for every single person on here, right? If you want to really know what's going on in the world, don't get your information just from platforms that are censored, right? So you have to understand that these concepts do exist. We have censored and uncensored platforms, right? Kick, Rumble, those are going to be a little bit more of uncensored, right? You're going to see a different reality. You're going to see a different creator space than you would on the Twitch, on TikTok, on Rumble, on Instagram, on all these mainstream platforms, right? These are what I call mainstream platforms. And then you have the ones that are truly uncensored. You got like X, which is more uncensored. I'm not gonna say these were completely uncensored. I'm not gonna say that. But they are way less monitored and way less censored um than the more censored platforms. And I think it's very very important for people, if you're really interested in the truth, to be at least seeking the truth on platforms that are able to have that as a more viable accessibility, and you have a higher chance of getting closer to a foundation and an understanding of what's actually going on. Because if not, you're hearing it from somebody else that maybe is a little bit censored, or not willing to tell you the fullest truth, and that could be compromising to your intelligence. That could be compromising to the wisdom that you want to acquire. That could be compromising to um, essentially your time, right? It's a waste of your time if somebody's not necessarily being you know, as open or as whatever, right? Me, I want to be open. I want to be transparent because, quite frankly, that is what I want to build the foundation of this brand on, is transparency, and to have good conversations, right? There's certain things that I won't talk about, but if I'm prompted to talk about, just know there's probably a good chance I have a good opinion on it, or rather, an opinion on. It's very, very rare where I come across something where I don't necessarily have an opinion on, or at least haven't thought about before. But I think that will make for a better future conversation than for me to expose all the cards that I have today. Especially with some of these topics that are, let's just say a little bit more taboo, a little bit more censored, a little bit people speak a little bit more carefully about. So yeah, But yeah, I'd really, really highly recommend that series that I had created because it's something that I believe a lot of people could truly benefit from, and at the very least, you know, if you're a person that would consider yourself naive to what's going on in the world, it would be a very, very good series for you to go ahead and watch and to be able to see hopefully some of these themes that I'm going to demonstrate in those episodes for sure. But yeah, it's just very, very interesting, man. You know, I was always a person at a very, very young age that was very interested in trying to find the truth. And I grew up at a time where the internet was a little bit less censored, and you know, to be able to understand censorship, to be able to understand things like, you know, propaganda, right? Be able to see it, to be a victim of it, and then also to come out on the other end and say, you know what, that's actually what it was. It was very, very intentional. You know, it's very, very political. It's very, very, you know, in a way performative, right? You begin to see through the veil that they want us to have our eyes covered with. And that makes it for a very, very interesting world for you to see. And, you know, if more people had seen, could see through the veil, then I feel like a lot more people would be able to have conversations that I think are very, very important for us to have. And obviously, you know, the more people's eyes that are covered, then the less of a chance that we have to go ahead and actually ask for the truth and to be able to receive the truth for what it actually is. So I think it's very, very important for sure. But and to an extent, man, I will say, with getting some of this, what do I want to say? With getting a lot of these doses of reality, these doses of truth, to be seeking these things that I and you should as well find a very much of value. It can be a little bit I don't even know the way to describe it. It's a rough. It can be a little bit rough. It can make life seem a little bit more bleak. It can make life seem a little bit more multi-dimensionally complex to the point of overwhelming, of potential anxiety. But it's like, would you rather be naive and calm, or aware of what's going on and a little bit more on the edge? For me, the answer is very, very obvious. I would rather be on the edge because at least I know more of what's going on as opposed to just, being selectively naive. Or maybe even not selectively naive. Maybe just naive, which is even worse. So, yeah, man. So, I highly recommend those, man, because to be blinded in today's society is to be at a disadvantage. Your enemy wants you in a certain position, and if you are completely playing into their hands, then it's going to be disadvantageous for you in the long run for sure. And I had wrote this note that I thought was very, very interesting, and this kind of summarizes exactly the ways in which I had thought. Right, growing up, I was naive to the experience of life, but not necessarily naive to what was going on around me. I feel like since I was young, I always wanted to seek the truth and was always into the things that most people were unwilling to talk about, and that potentially could leave us with a unflattering reality that would be hard to face. But I started researching these things around about 10 years old, and I've been researching these things for legit probably for the last 14 years, a little less than a decade and a half. Most of the things that I had researched, most of the things that I found of interest, most of the things that people weren't willing to have conversations with or about, or they thought were crazy a couple years ago, a lot of them turned out to be true. You were called crazy, but you should have been called early. And I think that's the thing that most people need to start recognizing is you need to keep tabs on these things, right? I feel like it's very, very important for you to keep a track record on what's telling you the truth and what's telling you lies, right? And here's the thing: to hold these things accountable, hold these things responsible, right? If the news lied to you about what's going on about COVID, let's just say, a couple years ago, you look back and you can say, you know what, a lot of that was horseshit. You cannot go and just believe that with 100% certainty that they're going to tell you exactly what the truth is. That there isn't an agenda that they're trying to uphold, that they're trying to program into your mind. So, with that being said, I think that's how you must evaluate a lot of different things, right? If a person lied to you, it's probably best not to give them the fullest trust, because if they showed that they can lie to you once, what are the odds? The odds just went higher, that they could lie to you again. So keep a very, very firm try, and this has kind of been my approach to observing people on the internet is I'm not necessarily fully tied into anybody. I'm not attached. I have my people that I'm decently loyal to, but to an extent, I'm not necessarily attached to anybody in any sense, just because of the simple fact that I know that people are human. And if you start to tell the if you start to go ahead and lie, you start to have a shitty track record. No matter how much I like you, you know that's gonna say something about your character. And I'm trying to only hear from the people that I truly value in terms of which their character is going to you know be evaluated upon. And if your character starts to deteriorate because of what you're telling, if you're willing to tell a lie, if you're willing to not just be genuine, then of course I'm going to be less inclined to want to go ahead and hear what you have to say, no matter who you are, no matter what you've done. And that's just what it comes down to, right? So nobody's vulnerable, or nobody's invincible to this. And I think that's the healthy thing that you must understand is nobody's an exception. Here's the thing, not even me. If I start talking a bunch of bullshit, I'm not an exception. Um I doubt that day will come, but I'm not an exception, right? You should be vetting me just as much as you should be vetting everybody else to see if I'm consistently being consistent with the character that I say that I want to uphold. And if I'm not, then of course, go ahead and do what you got to do. Um but yeah, I think that's the best and most proper way to go ahead and judge these things, because if not, then what the fuck are you actually doing? Are you just being like stupidly loyal to just what you know? You see what I'm saying? So I think that could be, like I said, that might not work in your favor always to be just completely loyal. What the fuck is this? So yeah, in short, that's how you should be evaluating it, as far as trying to navigate through the bullshit of it, and then trying to figure out what the truth actually is. What does it actually entail? And yeah, so I want to reiterate that point again, right? I was naive. I've been naive, or at least I was naive, a little bit more naive, to the experience of life, right? To be able to have my own personal experiences that led me to certain conclusions. But I've always been a very, very good observer of the world. I've been a really good observer of those around me, those that I've observed online. I've been pretty good judge of character, and have a pretty good and solid track record in terms of people that I've defended, for sure. Right, most of them have prevailed, and prevailed in a sense where what was once, like I said, was once just talk, or an attempt at a character assassination. The truth is always going to be shown in due time, of course. But what I mentioned is, like I said, I've always been naive to the experience of life, but not necessarily naive to what was going around me. To be a very keen observer is one of the most valued things in this world. It can show you and tell you a whole lot, and obviously, I'm not necessarily neglecting experience, because obviously, experience is very, very important. But in the same sense, it's best to have experiences. It's best to have experiences with previous observation, obviously. And if not, then you could be at a potential disadvantage, or go through something that you might not necessarily need to go through. So that would obviously be less than ideal. So um, that's the personal way I would like to start this little live with. Um, I do want to start talking about and having. I want to talk about more things in the coming weeks. I started pretty decent this year with videos and um, with going live. I'm trying to be a lot more consistent this year than I was last year because that's what I deserve. That's what you guys deserve. And I'm going to be doing a lot more short form content this year than I did last year. That's for sure. I want this year to be hopefully the most short form content that I've ever created. So hold me to that for sure. I'm going to be doing a lot more things like I'm going to start next month. I'm trying to do a lot more uploads and do like a lot more daily uploads because I think that could potentially be very, very good for my brand. Get some more eyeballs on me and hopefully get some more viewers watching. Um, I think that could be very, very good and beneficial for a lot of people, especially if I'm continuously speaking on the things that interest me, speaking on the things that I think that are truly of value. It'll be good for a lot of people for sure. So, but if there's anything in particular that you guys want me to talk about, something that you find of interest, something that you think I might know a little bit more about, or maybe you're just curious, I'm willing to hear you guys out for sure. Because here's the thing: if you're the one watching, I'm the one creating, right? But if you're the one watching and really want to attend something of worth your time and interest, I would love to hear exactly what you guys have to say, as long as it's still within my own realm of interest. Because I'm not here to just make, you know, content that's just going to be giving me the most views, or content that's just going to be me, acting goofy and shit like that. And I'm not here to do that. I'm not here to just be this false character. I'm here to just speak on the truth. I think that's my interest. I'm here to speak on the things that, you know, I find to be interesting. I'm always going to mention, music. I'm always going to mention dating and attraction. I'm always going to mention purpose. I'm always going to mention my motto, right? My purpose is to help men win. So the things that I believe that have helped me win along my way, I want to also be giving that back for sure. There's going to be a little bit more things that, maybe potentially I'll be more open to a lot more conversations with more collaborations. Hopefully, I'm going to be doing that. I want to start doing that maybe a little bit more like halfway through the year. I'll be doing a lot more collaborations, and I think that could be very, very good. Have some more people on the podcast and just get into some conversations where you can kind of see different sides of me, because I feel like you get to this weird point when you've been making content as long as I have. You feel like certain people should understand the ways in which I think, or should understand the perspective that I have on a lot of things. But I haven't had the most amount of eyes on me, so it's kind of interesting to be in this position because it took me such a long time. I've been posting a lot. If you really want to know who I am and what I stand for, I got endless episodes for that. I got hours. I got days of content for that. So I understand the climate of today, where most people won't go back and look, which might be to my advantage. And obviously, it's probably going to be to my disadvantage as well. But there's a lot of things that I've learned, and this is why, to an extent, I do wish I started making content a little bit earlier. Is there is a lot of things that I was interested in, and that I could speak a lot about if in the right conversation, that I don't necessarily even think to even to make content about, right? Certain things that, like I said, I've researched for hours, I've dedicated a lot of time into, that I just I feel like everybody knows it. I feel like everybody knows certain things that are just super, super basic, super fundamental to my own experience. Some things that have been very, very beneficial with my understanding, that I just assume that everybody kind of has that frame, when that's not even necessarily the case at all. Like one, for example, is just the very, very basic, and I've always said this for fucking years, but the very basic fundamentals of masculine and feminine, right? I think those principles are very, very basic. And if you don't have those as the very, very fundamental foundation for what you see the world through, then a lot of things get confused. A lot of things get very, very confusing, and just very, very much unclear. So I feel like that's a very, very interesting basic fundamental that's going to be a paradigm that you see the world through. That's going to make a lot more sense, and that's obviously going to be how you navigate through problems a little bit better. So the masculine feminine dynamic, a lot of things on attraction. I feel like a lot of these things, are givens, right? I'm a person who's done a lot of research on attraction, made a lot of videos on dating and attraction, and have been actually away from the dating game for a while now. Not necessarily disconnected because it's still of my interest. Evolutionary, what is it called? I guess you could say evolutionary biology, in a sense. When it comes to intermating dynamics, those are things that I've always been of my interest. I know a lot about. I'm removed from the game to deciding to play bigger and better games. But it's still something that definitely interests me, right? Especially with, conversations. This is just men being men, dude. Honestly, is what it is. But to be able to observe a lot of things, and I'm kind of reserved nowadays a little bit in terms of you know, what I speak on, just for the simple fact that I assume a lot of people know this shit already, even though they don't. These are basic things to me that aren't necessarily the most basic to everybody else, but I assume everybody knows the same thing I know, which, like I said, is probably to my disadvantage. But you know, it'll be interesting. You'll be able to see a lot more different things about me, maybe that you've never seen or never have gotten to see yet. I should make for some good content, right? I feel like I'm setting myself up perfectly for the future plays when I can start talking and be a little bit more on different podcasts. I'll have very, very unique takes, and hopefully my recall will serve me well, where I can begin to dive into topics that I've previously researched a lot, previously spent a lot of time thinking about, and I did a lot of podcasts on. So when I'm creating a foundation of when I could have home field advantage and not my home field. If that makes any sense. When I'm doing podcasts, I'm setting myself up for success. When I have conversations with people, I'm setting myself up for success because we might run into a topic where I spent a lot more time thinking about than the average person, or maybe even the person that I'm having a conversation with, and it could potentially serve me very, very well. Uh, Well, yeah, I just thought I'd come on here and say something, at the very least give you guys some type of content. If you do enjoy some of the content that I do make, highly, highly recommend tapping into the lives, man. Lives are gonna be where it's at. Rewatching is going to be obviously something that's a must to an extent, but also to an extent this is intentionally made for the simple fact of being live, having that live interaction, right? There's something unique about this channel that most people are not really going to have. You can interact with me live. This isn't a creator that's so disconnected from the audience. You'll be able to say something and get instant feedback. If you have an opinion, if you have a question, you'll be able to get an instant answer. That's not necessarily something that a lot of people get. Obviously, it goes away as soon as you get a little bit bigger, but I want to be as connected with the people as I possibly can. I want to be as connected with the fan base as I possibly can, especially when it comes to, the live chat, super chats, all that. So I'm going to be tapped in and be dialed in for sure. But that's all I have to say. Podcast is going to be on Thursday. Very, very likely Thursday, if not Friday. Tapping with that for sure. Other than that, that's all I have to say, man. Hopefully you enjoyed some of the things I had to say today. If not, go along with your day. I don't know why you watch all the way to the end. Y'all have a good night. Podcast on Thursday or Friday, and better content coming up next month for sure. I'm tapping.